Ladies and gentlemen, I was a massive coward growing up, and I promise this is relevant to the video. I cried on the Mummy ride at Universal, the Jurassic Park water ride at Universal, and the Harry Potter ride at, Universal. Yes, you heard me right, I rode 3 separate rides that made me cry within a single day. You almost have to stop and wonder how that even happens. Was I just optimistic that the next ride wasn't going to scare me? Did I have the memory of a goldfish? Who knows? What I do know is that this fear followed me right into my passion for video games. I never made it past the first safe house in Spider-Man Web of Shadows on the DS. Bad Company 2's opening mission had a younger me very concerned for our country's nuclear defense program. And to this day, I refuse to run Kino der Toten solo. But that's more so because I don't want to spend $60 on a 16-year-old game. So no, I was never built for single-player experiences. The thought of being alone with no backup, no safety net was terrifying to me both because I hated to lose and because I hated being lost without a guide. When it comes to making you feel isolated like that, nothing hits me harder than Halo 3 ODST, specifically the Mombasa Streets level of the game. That's because ODST weaponizes the feeling of isolation and never lets you forget it. Every step through Mombasa as the rookie reinforces the same idea. You are alone and everyone's already left the party. There are no friendly humans to shoot the shit with, no squad mates at your side, just the occasional dead Marine, and constant evidence that your team has already passed through, fought battles, and survived without you. New Mombasa isn't just empty, it is deliberately unwelcoming. The city is littered with reminders that you missed something important, that you were late in an even more stressful than an accidental pregnancy kind of way, and that whatever happened here already went wrong in an accidental pregnancy kind of way. Bungie didn't just build the Mombasa Streets to feel like a playground between missions. They built them to make the rookie feel isolated, small, and out of sync with the world around him. And the game wastes no time putting you into that headspace. You drop into the city underprepared and underinformed, which is partially due to you having slept through the mission briefing. And it doesn't help that you decided to sleep another 6 hours after smacking into Mickey's drop pod. When you finally wake up, your squad is gone, the city is dark, and the only things moving are Covenant patrols clearly searching for something while hunting down stragglers. Compared to the chaos in New Mombasa during the day, the streets at night feel lifeless. That feeling is familiar. Anyone who's ever found themselves alone on a deserted city street knows how quickly that emptiness will turn into paranoia. I've had my share of late nights in major cities, and those were already unsettling enough without the aliens. ODST taps directly into that fear and constantly plunges you back into it between the fun flashback missions. The streets of Mombasa function as a campaign's hub world. Rather than your average Halo experience where you run through the campaign in a completely linear fashion, using the term linear relatively here of course, you keep returning to Mombasa Streets as a jumping off point into more traditional like flashback levels. And unlike Halo 1 through 3 where Cortana or commanding officer is constantly telling you where to go and what to do, your instructions here are deliberately vague. And that makes sense. You're a rookie at the very bottom rung, desperate for guidance, and you can only get it from the city superintendent, which is just an AI. That isn't, of course, to hate on the fella because the superintendent is goated. I am saying, though, however, that the superintendent could have been a lot more helpful and a lot less cryptic in some instances, though I like the fact that the super makes us work for it. Because we are forced to piece together intel one by one to find our squad mates, this turns the rookies sections into the connective tissue between the game's flashback missions. It also really makes you feel like a detective. Every time you step back into the streets, you're not progressing the plot in a traditional sense. You're the rookie absorbing new information as he tries to solve the mystery of where his team went. The city becomes a liminal space between every single moment of the flashback missions. And it happens to be a place where the longer you spend on the streets, the lower your odds of survival drop. We've all seen post-apocalyptic depictions of our own world, whether it's A Quiet Place, Zombieland, or the eastern side of St. Louis. Especially when it comes to A Quiet Place, these settings all use silence to make us lean forward in our seats, as well as hold our breaths. The same applies for ODST, where the rookie seemingly had his tongue cut out, and our loadout weapons are both suppressed. On these Mombasa streets, silence is golden. Every accidental misfire of your weapon, every accidentally thrown grenade, can draw in enemies that can delete you within moments. To make things worse, Covenant troop movements are partially muffled by the constant rain landing in the game, and all it takes is one Jackal sniper to jump scare you with the checkpoint reset. An article from Science News Today called The Science of Silence informs us that silence causes your brain to gain heightened awareness and enables improved reflection similar to that of meditation. If you ran that logic through the silence found in Mombasa, You would surely think that your time exploring the streets would be more peaceful than stressful. And many times this may prove true. But when considering the contextual expectations of a bustling city filled with traffic and people screaming, "I'm walking here," the absence of such cues makes your brain stressed trying to hear these sounds. That's how the paranoia starts. Now the city has gone from a playground during the day into an active minefield at night, where you are always on edge. As can be expected, you're forced to, as a player, slow down and plan ahead if possible. Anticipate those snipers' nests, stop every so often to see if you can hear a brute's footsteps, and most importantly, stop spam jumping everywhere if you like your skull being intact. Oh, and the badass music is almost non-existent when playing as a rookie. Without enough music to guide your brain towards certain emotions and stimulate you, your mind is left to wander. Even when there is music, the soundtrack is far from triumphant. Instead, you get some very smooth saxophone and piano to make you feel more like you're in a futuristic noir movie. It will seemingly fade into silence only to come back with some very strong percussion that makes for solid jump scares to keep you on edge. Fun fact: that iconic saxophone used in Martin O'Donnell's scoring was a result of a back and forth between Marty and legendary game director Joe Staten, who initially recommended a muted clarinet to emulate the noir sound the game was wanting to evoke. Marty used that recommendation as a jumping off point to pivot to the saxophone, seeing as it made the soundtrack sound more futuristic while holding on to those undertones of a mystery. Seeing as you can't blindly sprint through the Mombasa streets like your Master Chief, you really do have to take in those surroundings. This is perfect because where the nightlife of Mombasa lacks in energy, it makes up for with some killer visual storytelling. Speaking of, let's talk about these background details that make this dead city really come alive. And what's the one thing that lets you know that you are in a city with a criminal presence beyond seeing a sign saying "Welcome to Chicago"? Some ominous graffiti. Want to know how you can make your city feel even more threatening? You throw in some alien, no, not that one, graffiti. But before we get into the extraterrestrial crop circle type stuff, let's look at the human examples first. They're exactly the kind of thing you'd expect during an alien invasion. Lots of messages of fear, defiance, and anger. My personal favorite is the tag telling us to remember Reach. It's short, simple, and to the point. With ODST releasing prior to Halo Reach, this was an effective form of world building in the same way that A New Hope mentioning the Clone Wars was. It hinted at events yet to be seen that made you want to know more. With the alien stuff, that's all the engineers or Huragok. I hope I pronounced that correctly. These glyphs found throughout the map serve as both despair and hope. Despair because, well, every spot you find a glyph is a spot where the Covenant has completely cleared the area, allowing these guys to break out the spray paints. Hope because it appears as though the engineers are still passively resisting their Covenant oppressors by helping guide the way for the rookie to find his squad. Around virtually all mission-specific beacons, you can find these odd glyphs that are reminiscent of Forerunner lettering that help inform you when you are getting closer to objectives. In addition, some of these glyphs sport the icon of the superintendent, hinting at the species cooperating with the AI, which we do see when we find Dare and her pet engineer. Finally, as another piece of trivia, there's an Easter egg revolving around those glyphs that has yet to be solved. Looking beyond the graffiti, there is an interesting choice made by the developers when it comes to the timeline of the Great Schism in ODST. Throughout the entire game, there are no elites to fight against, despite the Great Schism not actually occurring until a couple weeks afterwards. To quickly detour into this minor plot hole, I always thought that the Great Schism occurred during the same day as ODST, but it actually doesn't happen until almost 2 weeks after ODST takes place. This misconception was probably caused by the jump in Halo 2 from New Mombasa to Delta Halo appearing almost instantaneous. But if you check the dates, getting from Earth to the Halo took 2 weeks instead. Supposedly, those dead elites we see in Teari Plaza are from the Prophet of Regret's fleet and were likely slaughtered by the brutes from the Prophet of Truth's fleet. The brutes doing so could have either been because they just really hated the elites, or the Prophet of Truth figured it wouldn't hurt to start culling the Sangheili early on Earth. Of course, from a real-world perspective, because ODST is based on the Halo 3 engine, swapping over the then exclusively friendly elite AI to enemy was probably too tall of a task and too little of a time for the game. Anyways, where was I? Alright, the dead elites. Okay, so, along with the dead Marines, these bodies continue to solidify how much the rookie missed in just 6 hours. Despite the circumstances truly not actually being your fault, walking around seeing so much death knowing that you could have prevented it hits at a level of survivor's guilt that makes your drive to do something even greater. That, and it probably reminds the rookie just how unlikely survival is for him, and adds all the more reason for him to try and find his squad and get the hell out. At least the almost Tron-like roads let you feel like you're on the grid, while the billboards lighting the cool Mombasa skyline let you feel like Ryan Gosling in Blade Runner. But don't let all the cool adverts for Destiny or Honda Civics distract you from the much darker aspects of New Mombasa. Most specifically, the city itself is watching you. Everywhere you go, you can always find at least one form of surveillance recording you. It doesn't help that these cameras representing the superintendents all somewhat resemble Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Open the doors.
This conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye.
Hal.
Which happens to be the biggest snooze fest of a movie I've ever seen. Seriously, don't waste your time with it. Look it up on YouTube. I think there's like a 12-minute cut of the 2-hour version. Thank me later. Anyways, I think we should all be very, very grateful that the superintendent is more guardian angel than Big Brother. However, that shifts the story then from a scary shadow government to a literal journey through hell. There's plenty of videos on the subject, but yes, ODST was at least seemingly heavily inspired by the Divine Comedy. It's why in certain instances a superintendent could be referred to as Virgil. The similarities between ODST and the Divine Comedy are most apparent as the rookie descends into the Oni facility, the same way Dante descends further into hell. As the rookie continues to follow the AI's advice, the more danger he subjects himself to, which gets me to my next point. Throughout the game of ODST, there are multiple systems in place that will enforce your vulnerability and encourage exploration as the rookie, and they will manage to do so in 3 different ways. The first, of course, are the navigation beacons placed there by the super to help guide you toward your squad mates. They force you to explore 10 different sectors or districts within New Mombasa and force you into dangerous situations. These beacons are what get you moving around the map to start. What causes you to double down on the exploration is the sheer simplicity of these beacons and markers on your visor. Rather than full-on GPS guidance towards your objectives, you instead have to do it the old-fashioned way. You've got to draw your own route. This isn't helped by the city's current layout either. Usually, there's an open gate between each sector, but the Covenant invasion has caused some of these gates to close, forcing you to continuously make detours to get to your objectives. This causes a lot of doubling and tripling back to reach objective, which of course means a lot of time walking around seeing the sights. Without GPS waypoints, you're no longer tunnel visioned to cut the shortest paths between each possible place. Finally, because you've been forced to explore so much basically on the AI's behalf, the superintendent rewards you. It can't help you directly, so it does the next best thing. Your guardian angel will lead you via markers on your map to various supply caches that the super unlocks for you once you are within proximity. These things have the necessities to survive the Covenant, including various weapons ranging from SMGs to rocket launchers, and the occasional mongoose to boot. These places are also highlighted via engineered graffiti as well to make sure you really will not miss them. The one catch for these caches is that you need to gather specific pieces of intel for the super as you make your way through the city. They come in the form of audio logs, and they aid in the atmosphere of New Mombasa as much as everything else so far combined. Throughout the map, you may come across scattered audio logs that tell the tale of one Sadie Ndesha. It covers Sadie's experience just before the arrival of the Covenant in New Mombasa, as well as her struggle to save both her father and the superintendent's subroutine named Virgil, as I mentioned before. Rather than being a simple exposition machine pumping out all the vital information you need to understand Sadie's story, these logs will breadcrumb you without holding your hands. Not only that, but the places you find them are hardly uniform. Data terminals, health kiosks, UNSC recruiting centers, phone terminals, etc. What would normally have been simple set dressing gets extra attention because you can never be too sure if there's some vital information on them. These logs also happen to be the most specific parallel to the Divine Comedy, with Sadie's story taking place over the course of 9 different audio logs that closely mirror the 9 levels of hell that Dante strolls through within his story. Her main adversary beyond the Covenant turns out to be the NMPD, whose Commissioner Kinsler actively stifles the city's evacuation effort by shutting down the superintendent and Virgil. By the end of Sadie's journey, her pops has died, and Sadie's making a hard decision to leave Virgil behind to be recovered by Oni. As the rookie, these logs get you into that detective mindset by making you perceive everything. These different audio logs help you discover exactly what to expect when finally linking up with Dare at the Oni site. That is, of course, if you ignore the fact that an engineer absorbed Virgil and stored his information like he was Kirby or Boo.
This engineer knows what the Covenant's after. What they know could win the war.
Oh,
You haven't killed any of them, have you?
no! Well, maybe one or two.
Nice work.
How was I supposed to know?
It also paints the city under a new light of one being ruled by corruption once you see how often the people with power will use it to save themselves at the cost of others. And it will also show you how the little people will time and time again choose to help one another to the detriment of themselves. We see that New Mombasa has one very interesting flavor to it of melancholy. One where both great beauty and ugliness exist at the same time, almost paradoxically. What's wild about the Mombasa streets is that almost nothing about them is technically impressive in 2026. The mechanics at their core are still just Halo. We are given the illusion of stealth mechanics where there's basically none to be had. Those suppressors on your SMG and Magnum look and sound amazing, but they do not reduce enemy detection radius. The enemy AI themselves don't do anything crazy compared to Halo 3 either. Finally, the map is nowhere near the size of a modern-day game like, say, Fallout 76. There isn't even an actual rain effect in the original iteration of ODST. That was just a soundtrack tricking you. Yet, unlike in Bethesda's games, Bungie treated this Halo with care. 15 years later, this game's open world still sticks with people far more than entire campaigns that came after it both in and out of Halo. A lot of modern games are terrified of silence. They fill every second with dialogue, quest markers, and music to keep you rolling along towards objectives. There's a very real lack of faith on the part of the developers and their own target audiences, and it's honestly disrespectful. They want you distracted enough and incapable of looking at something as important as the ambiance of a play space to notice all the corners they've cut during development. Even open worlds that claim to be lonely rarely let you feel alone. There's always a radio call, a minimap overloading your senses, or some NPC checking in to make sure you're still having fun. ODST does the opposite. It trusts you. It lets you wander. It lets you sit within that discomfort. The Mombasa streets don't care if you're lost, scared, or unsure of what to do next. And that indifference is exactly what gives the space its power. Bungie understood that isolation isn't about emptiness. It's about the context that you put that emptiness within. It's about knowing something happened here, knowing you missed it, and knowing you might not survive long enough to make it matter. That's why the Mombasa streets still work. Not because they're scary in a traditional sense, but because they make you feel small, late, and exposed in a world that's already moved on without you. It was everything Fallout 76 sought to achieve with the scorched and lack of humans in Appalachia. Yet ODST managed to execute the concepts and themes of loneliness so much better a decade prior. For a kid who hated being alone in games, ODST forced me to sit with that fear instead of running from it. And somehow, by the time the sun finally comes up over New Mombasa, that loneliness feels earned. Like you survive the night not by overpowering it, but by listening to it.